So part 2 of our SQLite database that we're working on. The next part is we are now going to be working in our onCreate method or function. Okay, this is where we actually create our database. We actually create a query which we're going to run later to create our database. So in this onCreate part, we are going to create a variable called val create table query equals, okay, and at this particular part of the code is where we actually now create our database, because our database has to be created. So we're going to create the database at this particular moment. So usually what I do is I create a query. So we are going to create our query, and let's call this query equals, I'm just going to change the name to query. When we have query, and I'm going to say create table. Okay, create table. And then sometimes I like to do a bit of concatenation here, but we don't have to, because we know about the $sign. You know, the $sign allows us to put variables in there, but I'm going to do concatenation so that you have an idea. So plus, and then remember that we have table here, table users here. So that's our table name. So we can just pass in table users plus, and then we're back to resuming our normal thing that we're creating. So what we're saying is create table user MD, right? And then we're going to have a circle here, because remember that we're creating a query. And in that query, we're going to have, do we have our call ID, right? Because we're creating a table which has, we already signified what the ID name should be. So the ID, we have that call ID plus, then we can also have, we have to specify what kind of data type the column ID is supposed to be. In this case, it's an integer, because we're going to make it auto increment so that it increments on its own. We don't have to do it ourselves. So in that particular case, what we'll end up doing is we will say, inside here, we'll say integer primary key. Let me see if when I break it, I'll hope I wouldn't spoil the code. Okay, so call ID integer primary key. Okay, and then with that primary key, we can also make it auto increment. Now, what this means is that our IDs will auto increment on its own. So rather than having a database where every time a new user adds themselves, it will, maybe the ID will be 000 for each user. No, if you add auto increment, the next person that registers will be a 1. Next person that registers will be 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth and so forth. Then we have a comma, because remember that we're creating an SQL query. And then we have our column name. If you all remember, we have a column name. So plus, right? Then we have call name. I mean, all of these can be made easier if you use the $sign, because the $sign will help you to make things a lot more easier than what we're doing. But I'm showing you this just in case you also come across this in coding. You'll be able to know that that plus sign is just you mixing variables together. Okay, so we have this call name, and then we have a plus, and then again we're back to giving it the data type is going to be that of a text. It's quite important that you know exactly how to do this part. A reason I say that, because what I have discovered in the past is that we seem to, if you don't put the right information in the right area, what will happen is that it will not create it properly. It will put everything together, okay? So then we end up with something like this. So what this query is basically saying is create a table called user MD, right, with values of, so we have what you have is we're creating a table, and the table is going to be called table users, and it's going to have a column ID, and it's going to have a column name also, and the data types is we have ID, and then we also have text. Okay, then the next part of what we're going to do is we are actually now, well, first of all, we're going to check if the DB is going to be null or not. So in this particular case, what we end up doing is there are different ways of doing this, but I'm doing it this way. If DB is not equals to null, because what we want, first of all, what we want to check is, we want to make sure that the DB actually exists. So let's see why I'm getting an error here. If empty, okay, because it's empty. If DB is not equals to null, we're going to say execute this query, and then we're going to pass in the keyword query. Okay, so let's see what this, okay, so it's telling us that there's a better way of doing it. So let's try it. We might not like it, but let's try and see. It says we don't really need the if statement there, so it can still work, but I'll keep it there for now. Safe access expression. I'll keep it there for now. We can always change it later and see how it is. And this is how we actually create our database table. Okay, our database, and it will execute the query. So you can, so for let's say for example you were to work on an assignment or a project, you may want to create multiple queries to create that particular tables that you want in your project. Okay, and then we're going to move on to on upgrade. For now, we may not necessarily need, well, it's not yet implemented. For our on upgrade, what we're going to do is, I'm just going to write a simple query here, and that query is going to be, for now, we're not going to focus so much on this part. We're just going to have db dot execute SQL, and I'm just going to write a simple query. We're going to say drop table if exists, and then we're going to pass in table users. Again, like I said, we could have, when we were creating this, we can literally just replace all these plus signs with a $sign, and we won't need a plus. But I'm doing it in two different ways, just in case you come across concatenations like this. Okay. Can you see I'm getting this error here? It's basically telling me that I can replace it with this null thing, so that in case the DB doesn't exist, we have a null. It helps. It's like a safe way of doing your coding. You see this quite a lot if you're building React Native projects or object-oriented object projects, really, in React Native. So that's our on upgrade. So what we've done is we've literally created our on create, and then we've also done our on upgrade. Okay, these are the simple methods that we need for now. Okay, these are the simple methods that we need for now. So that's our on create created, and that's our on upgrade created. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video.